Hi, hello everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Wednesdays at Noon with PunkinFutz. We are now on episode 9, and today we have Gina Moffa with us, a licensed clinical social worker who will be talking to us about navigating the uncertain and practical approaches to crisis moments like the one that we are all globally in right now. And I'm so happy about that because PunkinFutz as a company is passionate about mental health. We want to help the community and we want to be aware of something that is extremely important during this time and always. So we're super happy about this episode and excited to dive right in. Before that, though, I want to take this time to thank frontline workers, of course, who make it possible for us to be home and safe right now. So thank you to everyone out there, whether you wear a uniform or not. We love you, we appreciate you, we respect you. Just thank you to everyone worldwide. Hi, Jason. Thank you for joining us. I also want to take this time to let you guys know there is a bit of a lag in the comments, but we will be watching the comments and we want to talk to you. We want to hear from you. So please do engage with us. If you're watching this, thank you so much for coming and clicking on this live stream. And we hope that you're ready to talk about mental health. And as you can see, this live stream will be available with ASL interpretation on our Facebook soon. So within a couple of days. I also want to say thank you to parents specifically who we do these live streams for. Parents who are at home right now who might be a little bit anxious about what's to come and just the uncertainty and everything that may or may not come with the rest of this pandemic. We love you guys and we respect you as well because you are now you're now faced with a challenge of being on 24/7, and we understand that it's hard. So we just want to take this time to shout out to all the parents. If you're watching, and even if you watch this as a playback, I just want to take this time to say that we respect all of you guys. So yeah, that's the end of my announcements, and I'm going to hand it right over to Gina. Gina, could you tell us a little bit more about you?
Sure, absolutely. And I echo everything that Shanique just said. Thank you so much to everybody. And thank you to all the superhero parents out there.
Yes.
My name is Gina Moffa. I am a therapist here in Manhattan, usually on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, where my office is. Now I am doing everything over the interwebs like we are now. I specialize in trauma, grief, and real anxiety that comes with life transitions and even challenging ones like we're in right now. So I don't know if you want me to go on about that or.
Yeah, sure.
I'm excited to be here. I work a lot with people right now who are having a really hard time navigating this specific time because it's so unpredictable and there's so much grief involved with it, which I'll get into at some point during this time.
We can dive right into our first question. Hi to Juliana Muyat Libiondo. I hope that I said that correctly. If not, I'm so sorry. What is survival care? Could you tell us about that?
Sure. Survival care is something that I found myself saying in sessions all the time. We all know about self-care. A lot of what society tells us about self-care is that it is mostly based in our bodies, right? We get our nails and hair done. We do yoga, we make time for ourselves to do some of the things we like to do. In this particular time, yes, that's important, but I think it's more important that we step that up into extreme self-care. I call it survival care because I think more than ever, our mental health support needs to come first. I don't care what your nails look like if you are having anxiety attacks every single day. So it's really trying to figure out what it is that we need to survive this time with our mental health completely as much as possible intact at the end of this.
I love that. So I'm just going to add on to that. I'm a firm believer mental health enthusiast. I actually would like to get into mental health once I make a career change a little later in my life. But because of that, I'm embarking on my own survival care journey right now. I love that name, and it's so appropriate. Um, Survival care specifically has helped me through this pandemic, and I have certain like specific things that I do as a part of my survival care kind of journey, and part of that looks like appreciating the sun when it's around. I think sun really, really kind of helps my mood. I wonder what it's like for other people. Like, what does your survival care look like? Please tell us in the comments and we will. Hi, Robin. Hi, Julietta. So, yeah, I agree. I think survival care is super important.
I think a lot of it is not necessarily, I'm reading Robin's question, if that's okay. What
Yeah.
kind of select questions should we ask ourselves in creating our own survival care? Well, first, everybody's needs are different. So I think it's going to be important for you to kind of say, well, what, it almost is something I want to kind of get into a little bit later, but what is it that I need right now to stay grounded, right? Because we're all triggered very differently by things that we're seeing right now or our own experiences. So it's how do I jump up and grab that trigger before it causes a physical reaction in me that creates panic and trauma and a
That's
snowball
so
effect of
important.
anxiety. So
So
that's,
important.
yeah. And if you don't mind, Robin, I'd love to sort of get into that a little bit in a minute or two, for sure.
I think that that's a perfect segue into our next question. Trigger is something that we hear a lot connected to mental health. Could you tell us, please, what exactly is a trigger?
Sure. A trigger is a stimulus. It could be an outside stimulus, like a smell, hearing something on the news, a touch, a taste, seeing someone, or it can also be an internal stimulus. It could be a memory. Stress can be a real trigger. It could be something that comes up in not just a memory, but a flashback or something like that. It's also it's a cue. Basically, it brings up feelings of trauma. It brings up a time that we were stressed or in a panic state before, and it causes physical arousal in our bodies that becomes a panic state and high anxiety.
Juliana asked a really good question. Could you give us some examples of survival care? I know you said you wanted to touch on it later, but it looks like people are really interested in this
Yeah, sure.
survival care.
So let me get into something that I think that gives me an overarching sense of what we're talking about is that this is a trauma that we're in right now collectively, but we also have our own individual trauma experiences throughout our lives. Everybody who's listening, watching, and is a part of this has experienced trauma at some point in your life. Therefore, triggers are something that is a part of, your experience right now, whether or not you're consciously aware of it. We have just one nervous system, but we have all of these little traumas in our lives that, can echo very similar feelings that we felt in an original experience. So if you're thinking that you resolved the loss of a parent or the loss of a job or something like that, and those feelings are coming up right now, it's not that you're not safe, but your brain is basically having a neurological response that is very similar to that past stress state. So when I think of survival care, it is what can we do when our body is triggered and aroused to bring it back to a state of calm. And for some people, that is meditation and mindfulness. That can be grounding techniques. I know you guys talked about that last week.
Yes.
The movement, whether you exercise, whether you dance, it could be a creative expression. Anything that helps you sort of jump up and grab that arousal and that trigger before it becomes an actual panic state in your body. That's why I call it survival care, because once you get the body involved, it does become a little more difficult to actually get to that calm state. So I would love to jump up and grab it before it happens. It is definitely a trauma experience that we're all dealing with right now.
Julia, I'm sorry.
Oh no, I just want to say one more thing. And if you have a history of anxiety, a history of trauma, history of depression, this time specifically is going to bring up a lot more for you. It's going to bring up the grief. It's going to bring up more anxiety. Your triggers are going to be very, very short. Whereas perhaps before this, you wouldn't be necessarily bothered if you were watching the news and saw, the death toll rise on something. But because this is a time that is so uncertain and we're all doing a lot of grieving, which is something I also kind of wanted to talk about, it is really important that we bring it all back to our bodies as much and as quickly as we possibly can.
I love that. You made a really great point that I think was a big turning point for me early in this pandemic, is seeing the death toll rising on the news. I cannot stress this enough. I understand that the news is important, but we control what we consume. And I think that's a big part of survival care, is limit the amount of news you watch, especially since the media is programmed to kind of put fear in us. That's just my personal opinion, but I believe that the media kind of evokes fear out of everyone, and we don't want that as a feeling right now that we have. Julietta Barnett said, "Yes, I'm interested too. I have been struggling, but mainly because of anxiety and mental health." Thank you so much for sharing that, Julietta, because that to admit that you've been struggling with that, that's a point of vulnerability that we want to commend you on. So thank you so much for sharing that.
And you are so not alone.
You are not at all. How can we grieve this? That's a great question.
Yeah, I would love to talk about that in general, because right now we're all grieving, and it's something that we don't actually talk about enough. We've had so many losses right now. We've had the loss of our normal routine. We've had the loss of safety, right? There's something out there that's really dangerous, but we don't know what it is or how to avoid it. The news changes all the time. They keep you on your feet. First, it doesn't affect people. It's a lot of things are happening so that you don't have a reference point that feels safe. So we're grieving that. A lot of people are grieving human affection and human interaction. A lot of people are grieving financial insecurity. We have anticipatory grief of the future.
A lot of people are grieving canceled events, from their weddings to their baby showers and graduations. And I'm so sorry. It sucks to see all of this stuff be canceled. But yes, grief looks so different for everyone. There's so many things that we're grieving right now.
Sure. And I think that we have to really just acknowledge the feelings that are coming up. Yes, they are anxiety and grief, but anxiety and trauma, but that is also a big part of grieving this. And especially the anticipatory grief, because when you don't know what is ahead and there's no safe ground to step on, so to speak, you're really left feeling powerless and immobilized in a lot of ways. And this is a time that you really need to dig in deep for your resources. And that can be something like the grounding techniques. Great. And that's the question. What can we do to regain that safe space is, like I said earlier, knowing yourself and knowing what can help you go into a state of calm is number one. For some people, meditation is not it. They can try all day, but maybe that brings up more anxiety within them because their monkey mind is saying, you're not doing this right. It could be getting as simple as getting very grounded. You had talked about the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method, I think, in one of your lives, right?
Yes.
Which is really great. I don't know if anyone needs to hear that again, but I do think it's a great fix for just kind of bringing your focus back to the center, even if it's momentarily. Something that I also really like is kind of imagining 2 boxes in front of you. One is an acceptance box and one is a change box.
Oh, I love that.
And so you think about the idea, is this something that I need to change and take action on right now? Or is this something that I have to accept right now? Which means then I sit in the feelings and really allow the feelings to come and not get stuck, right? Emotion is better in motion. When we don't want to feel something or we fight against something, we suffer more. As in allowing that feeling to come.
I feel so convicted by that. Like, I've never actually heard that approach, so I'm actually going to try that. Thank you so much, Gina. Juliana asked a question that's now on the screen. What if it feels
Okay. I
what if it feels selfish to say I'm grieving when others have gone through so much? Wow, I really relate to that as well.
I think that we get into, right, this really dangerous territory when we compare and despair, because the truth is there's always something going on in the world, and there are always things where people are suffering more than we are, right? Even on any given day, there's so many people in poverty. There's, cultural inequality. There's so many things where people are definitely going
Yeah.
through so much.
And that's not an excuse to minimize your pain. It,
Exactly.
yeah.
Be honest with you, Julie, people feel safe when other people are vulnerable, right? If I share with you,
Mhm.
I'm really feeling anxious about that. Doesn't that make you feel, oh, you know what? I'm anxious too. Thank you for giving me permission to feel this. We are a community here. So all of the feelings are valid and nobody is different than another person. But it doesn't take your grief away if you feel selfish to feel it, right? It's still there. It's always going to be there. You're doing other people actually quite a service when you share your grief, because it gives other people permission to feel. So please do that.
Mhm.
Okay. The 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 focus and calming exercise is really just about using 5 of your senses. So you have 5 things that you can see around your room. If you can do that right now, if anybody is here sort of feeling uncentered or in a state of anxiety, or actually it just kind of works to just be present in your body, be present in the room.
Yes.
5 things that you can see around the room. You can usually, while we're doing this exercise, you would name them. Be 4 things that you can hear, 3 things that you can touch around you, 2 things that you can smell, and 1 perhaps that you can taste. And it could be even, I just had a piece of apple before this, so I sort of still taste it. um, Doing this exercise, even if it seems sort of very simplistic and somewhat cheesy in some ways, it is really the most fundamental and basic grounding exercise that we can.
Yes, absolutely. It also helps, I think, to be sitting in one spot doing this, like with your feet on the floor, so you can know that where you kind of are in your sense of space. At least,
Yeah,
I notice that it helps for me. Just because if I'm moving, like it makes me anxious while trying to do
right.
this grounding exercise. So
Good point.
I also I had a question for any moms or parents that might be struggling with being able to do these mindfulness and grounding exercises while they might still be working. There might be some frontline workers watching this. Is there any advice that you could give to anyone who might be feeling anxious on the go? Something that they could do or think about if they're moving or constantly, helping their children or whatever that may look like, people who may not have time to just kind of be present in that moment, like something for people that are on the go.
Yeah, I'm really big on taking a moment, closing your eyes, and either reciting a mantra, a, line in the Bible, if that's what you do, a spiritual saying, a quote of a poem, or even just saying, like, just for a second, closing your eyes and saying, "I am safe. I am here. I am present. I'm okay. I'm safe. I'm present. I'm here. I'm okay." Even if you have to just recite this to yourself on the move, on the go,
Love that.
um, just as some way to just sort of recite to yourself that it's okay to be it's okay to be here. It's okay to just breathe, taking a breath. I call it the blessed pause, right? We're so busy moving, we're so busy doing, talking, trying to escape from the anxiety. Um, Trying to understand, right? We go Google crazy. We're just
Mhm.
that kind of people. And so if we can have that blessed pause for just a minute, you get to decide how it is that you want to either react or feel. how you want to approach this moment, right? You're being stimulated, you're being triggered. You actually have power in your response to that. You can
Oh, I love
respond
that.
to it.
That's a powerful statement. You have power in your response. That's super important.
It's important, especially because we don't often think we do. We think that we're sometimes a prisoner to the body, we're a prisoner to the feelings that come up, because we don't understand the brain and how that
Yeah.
happens. But we have, I would recommend and encourage you try to challenge those overwhelming thoughts that come up by doing just what I said.
Yeah, absolutely. Our next question is, how can we model positive mental health for our children?
This is sort of another, like, it feels simple but isn't, but really it's through honesty, right? It's if we're honest about our emotions and our struggles appropriately, of course, then it gives them the freedom to do so. It gives them the safety to do the same. I think when we try to hide something, it comes out anyway in our behavior or in the energy around us, right? Children can feel tension. It's that energy that comes up around your body that gives a message that it's maybe not okay, something is awry. I think, letting your children know that it's okay to acknowledge feelings by acknowledging your own is really a good start.
Mm, I
Another
love that.
thing I think is helpful is knowing, knowing what your feelings are. This is um, something that I think we chatted about at some point. Was I really love for people who have a very difficult time naming their emotions. I'm really big, if we can name it, we can understand it and manage it, but sometimes feelings feel too big.
Mm,
So I like to sort of simplify it a little bit more and get a feeling chart out, which I think could be really great for working with our children too. Um,
love
feeling
that.
chart Feeling charts are basically sort of a circular chart of feelings. You can find them anywhere on the internet if you Google feeling charts, and they range anywhere from very simple feelings to more complicated feelings.
Mm,
Um, putting putting our feelings into words can be a struggle, and that's for adults and children alike. Um, but I think if things start to arise and you maybe don't know what the feeling is, look at the chart.
mm,
Look at the chart. Say, don't hunt for the right word on the chart, but really just look at it and see what pops out to you. I think it's also a good thing to do with your kids, sort of either every day at the start of the day and at the end of the day, sort of just like, to measure where they're going with their emotions. And it's good for you to share in that too. So
mhm.
everyone has more of a sense of safety, right? If my mom is sharing her feelings and it says safe, and I don't, I know that she's a safe person to go to. If she says anxious, I can say I am too, and maybe we can share in that emotion.
Mm,
Um,
love that.
it's always good, I think, to let the kids go first, for sure. There's so many face charts that have just the smile and all of that, and of course, yeah, absolutely. Um, I'm saying yes to your question, which is if our child can't read, can we use those face charts that they have at the doctor's office for pain? Absolutely. We don't have to get complicated.
Mm,
For the most part, those 5 or 6 to 10, feelings that you've seen in the doctor's office, those are really the main primary feelings anyway. We don't have to get complicated about it. So absolutely, 100%. I like also sort of comparing feelings, right? Um, how you were feeling earlier today versus, how you felt yesterday, to sort of measure how that is. Like, I'm feeling happy today, but yesterday I felt nervous.
mm.
I think it's really good for us to gauge our own emotions on all of this, if that's
How,
helpful.
how can we tune out other people's negative opinions and reactions? Juliana is on a roll today because
Is
we are here, okay?
I know her, and
I'm
she's
with
a
her.
change maker and a wonderful
Love
human.
that.
um, how can we tune out? Kind of the same way I would say that we tune out the news in a way, right? So there's something I like to call manageable doses. What do we need manageable doses in? And that's it's an important question for you to ask yourself. You may need to talk to your brother for 5 minutes, or not at all, or once a week. it's going to be really, really important that I kind of see this also as a trigger, right? Because other people's negative emotions and reactions are triggers for us. So almost in the same way that we would respond to a trigger, sort of jumping up and grabbing it, I don't recommend that we bring aggressiveness back into it, but either the assertiveness of, hey, what you said really, it hurts me, or maybe I'm not able to hear this right now. I respect what you're saying. However, it's not the time for me to hear something like that. But honestly, sometimes what we do to take care of ourselves might either hurt or upset or disrupt other people because they're used to us being a certain way. And this time is really important. Like that survival care I was talking about is to figure out what we need in manageable doses. And it is really hard. I have people on my social media saying things like this, COVID is a hoax and people are overreacting. And, meanwhile, I know several people who come down with it really suffering. And so, I have a choice. I can either engage in that conversation where I could try to change what they think, which usually doesn't work.
Right.
Or I can take that manageable dose and either hide them or just not engage whatsoever. And those are sort of some of the options.
I just also want to take this time because I think everyone needs to hear it. Don't apologize for how you feel either. I noticed that that's something that I used to do when it came to my mental health journey, that I used to apologize to people about who I am and how I deal with my mental health. But you can't. You have to do what's best for you. And I think um, this is the only time when it's okay to be selfish. Selfish is not, we have to take that negative connotation out of selfishness and kind of think about ourselves and our mental health. What works for us? What do we allow? What you allow is what will continue. And if we don't start with apologizing, I think that it'll be a good habit to form. And it's so important for people to know, like, your feelings are valid and you can't apologize for the way that you feel because feelings are real and we can't always control them. So yeah.
We mostly can't control them when they come up, but we can manage them for sure. That's a great point. Thank you. Any suggestions for dealing with insomnia? Julieta, I'm so sorry that you and your son are having trouble sleeping. It's especially during a time where we need this rest, huh? I would say there's a couple of things. First of all, I would probably ask you if you are open to sort of more mindfulness-based techniques to sort of slow down maybe the thoughts that are coming up. There's something that I really love to do. Sometimes your body just knows that it needs to be held. And I use this quite often, actually these days, is really taking a minute to just kind of contain yourself and perhaps even with your son, is sort of to grab on the outside of your heart and then reach around and sort of squeeze this other forearm and hold it for a few minutes. This gives a really solid message to our brain that it doesn't have to be in fight, flight, or freeze, and that we're safe. And I'll tell you, with insomnia, that anxiety is your brain saying like, something's not right. So there's that. I also love this little exercise. It was brought up by trauma expert Peter Levine, which is also in self-containment. For some people who are really anxious, just be patient with this. It does take a little bit of time. But if you stick with it, you'll notice a change. Is sort of putting one hand on your forehead, one on your heart. Noticing how your heart is beating. Feeling your head. And really just the touch in and of itself is so helpful. I would stick with this sort of for a little bit longer. And I'm doing it just based on time. Something I really love is some of the apps that are out there that do body scans, right? This is all sort of going towards the same thing, which is there's an app. I use an app called Insight Timer. It's free. We can put it up there somewhere if any of you don't know it. We have free meditations to help you sleep. They have body scans, which is just basically sort of like taking notice of different parts of your body, whether it's like, doing this and like letting it go just to feel the tension in there. Most of the time with insomnia, it is that your body and your mind are in two different places. And it's how do we get them in the same place, which is a state of calm and non-arousal.
You brought up a really good term, Gina, before, and I don't want to fly right past it. You said fight, flight, or freeze. Could you clarify what that means for people out there who might not know what it means?
Sure. Fight, flight, or freeze is a response to danger and life or death stimuli. Mm-hmm. So, like if you are being chased by a bear and your life is completely in danger, you're going to have a choice. You can freeze, or you can fight the bear, or you can run away from the bear. And usually it will be a different response to each time. Mm-hmm. The difference between animals having this and humans is a squirrel can get chased by a dog, right? And it will fight, flight, or freeze. Most of the time it will either freeze or run away. Mm. And what it does is it shakes it off. You've seen dogs like shake off either when they're wet or, when they've gone through something. And the shake, basically, it tells the brainstem that the danger is over. And what that does for an animal is it wipes the slate clean. For humans, we hold that in and we're like, oh boy, I don't know, what am I going to do about that? That feels shameful. Maybe that was my fault. What could I have done differently? Should I have done this? Oh man, should I talk to a therapist about it? Maybe I'll wait until it gets worse, right? So the part of our brains that don't know what to do are always in a place of, should I fight this? Should I run away from this? Or should I freeze when it feels like it's in danger? I gave a little bit of an extra thing about a different nerve, but
I love that
later. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Our next, how do we decide which to do?
You don't. You don't. It's like if you fall down a flight of stairs, your brain isn't like, what should I do? Should I grab onto that? Should I go faster down the stairs? Or should I try to fight gravity? Your body sort of has a way of going off on its own without letting the mind, giving the mind permission to strategize it. So we really don't decide which to do. It's really pure animal instinct. Interesting.
I love that. How do we know how much information to share with our children, which is our next question? I think one of the most important. All of the questions are important, but this one, I think a lot of parents need the answer to right now.
I think that you want to be a safe place for your child, right? So if you aren't an honest and safe space for your child to express the confusion, right? Children were just yanked out of their normal routine into this other thing that is confusing and sort of unpredictable and unending. So I think that we should share the truth with our children. I think appropriately so. Obviously, age matters. And I think having, knowing whether your child will be more anxious after sharing is also incredibly helpful, right? How much of this will hurt or help or hinder my child? Obviously, we always want to be a state of calm and ease and protection for our kids. But it is important to know where are they at mentally with this? How much of this will they understand? And how much of this will help or hinder them? With younger kids, we use less details, and more details as people get old, as children get older. But I think always being as honest as we possibly can is the way to go.
If my child is showing signs of anxiety, not sleeping, nightmares, etc., what can I tell him about the future, school, and summer camp?
I think it's important that we let them know that it will happen again. Children have, I think, a little bit less of an idea of the calendar than we do in some ways. These are sort of, in a way, two different questions in my mind. if your child is showing signs of anxiety, we want to work with that right then and there, right? The not sleeping, the nightmares. I want to know what is triggering that anxiety. Is it intermittent? Is it constant? Are the nightmares daily? Are they just after seeing something, hearing something? What is the stimulus that's happening there? In terms of what to tell our kids about the future, that's hard too. And I think being really honest about that is important because we don't know. But what we do know is that this is temporary, whether it is temporary, by the end of the summer, or temporary if it happens again. But things to look forward to, what is his favorite thing or her favorite thing about school and summer camp? How can we connect with that in some way so it feels closer? Maybe there's a special friend. Maybe we connect with that friend so that he or she feels closer to that experience of summer camp. A lot of kids are sort of doing online school right now, which is the less fun version of it, but they're really great sports. Actually, I give them a lot of credit. But what fun are they having around school? Are there friends that they could have a little Zoom play date with? I think connectivity is really, really important for our kids. So whatever they can connect with, whether it's a friend, whether it's a memory of camp, whether it's for when camps can start. There will be some version of camp, whether it's even online activities. At least some camps on here are doing some version of getting together and connecting with the community.
Can I?
Being honest, sure.
Sorry, I was just thinking, like, I think a lot of times because children are young and because we are speaking about children, we sometimes forget to kind of have a check-in with them and see if they're able to see what they need from us. And this is something that I've actually been telling my mom, is like, because I do have smaller siblings who are now 16 and almost 17. But anyway, I've been trying to tell her, like, check in with them, see what it is that they need, and see how you can help. So do you think that would help to kind of check in with children and ask them, how are you feeling right now? What do you need from me? Do you think that would help?
I think it depends on how much they share, or if it seems like they have more. It is great advice for adults. We should all be checking in with one another.
Yeah.
There's social distancing. That's really physical distancing, but not necessarily social, since we shouldn't isolate, even emotionally isolate. So I guess what I would say is yes. I think that for me is all included in the feeling charts. And obviously, if your child is saying, I'm anxious every day, checking in is really important. But I like to let them steer the ship as much as possible to have a sense of empowerment and, independence as much as they possibly can.
I love that.
In that way. But sure, agreed, we should all be checking on one another all the time anyway. But if for kids who don't have, the ability to share or express their feelings at all, for sure, checking in is vital.
I love that. So we are actually almost 5 minutes out and about to close soon. Hi, Rafa. Hi, Rebecca. Hi, everyone who just joined us. I want to take this time to see, is there any advice for parents trying to manage stress triggers? That's a great question. I was going to lead to our last one, but go right ahead.
Yeah, and at the risk of sounding like a broken record, I really think that getting to know what is going to help you regulate your own physical arousal or stressors is going to be the most important thing, right? Knowledge is power. So, I'm just going to use you, Shanique, just for an example. Like maybe music and singing is something that you use to connect to a deeper part of yourself. And when you sing, you're very present. You're using all your breath, right? So you actually can't. We actually can't panic while we're singing because we're using all of our lung capacity to have this output. So that sort of gets to something that I want to bring up in a minute or two. But knowing yourself really well, and that could be the mindfulness stuff. That could be that blessed pause. That could be connecting with a friend or a relative that makes you feel comforted. That can be journaling. I'm really, really big into writing out our feelings.
Yeah.
Even if you just have 5 minutes and you put a timer on your phone and you're like, I'm going to write out all of my worries, and then I'm going to close the book and try to move on with my day. And if that 5 minutes isn't enough, I'll give myself 10 minutes. I think having a lot of compassion for ourselves right now is vital. We're all going through a really unprecedented experience. Different things will come up for different people, and different needs will even arise, right? You may, have a different desire or a need to feel held, or, or somebody to tell you it's okay, or you didn't need that before. So again, and I say this all the time, is really sort of knowing yourself and getting to know yourself as best as possible, and what can actually take that down a notch. I also really love, even for adults, having that strategy of what can I change and what can I accept, or what can I change and what should I accept right now. In the acceptance box is, all of these sort of mindfulness based techniques, or, just saying emotion, even if you tell yourself emotion is better in motion, and just let the feelings come through you as much as they need to.
Emotion is better in motion. I love that.
Mm-hmm. I hope I'm helpful answering these. Sometimes I'm having a hard time. Like, I want to answer the questions, but then I forget what I'm saying. So.
No, you're doing amazing. You're doing great. And you brought up something that is really important to you, which is singing. So could you tell us more about that in the song that you wanted to share?
Yeah, I came across a little song on Instagram. Thank God for social media sometimes, especially in this particular time. This song that I want to share with you is a little mantra that I think would be great to teach your kids or share with your kids. I think it can have absolutely profound emotional and regulatory effects. I think it's a great thing to kind of just stay in our bodies and start the day. It kind of has a lot of positivity to it, and we could all use that. And also, like I said before, musicality is really great right now because it keeps us very, very present. Okay, so I heard this song by a psychologist in Australia. Her name is Alison Davies. I'll give you that information. And it goes like this. I have to remember the words now. Every little cell in my body is happy. Every little cell in my body is well. Every little cell in my body is happy. Every little cell in my body is well. I'm so glad every little cell in my body is happy and well. I'm so glad every little cell in my body is happy and well. Every little cell in my body is happy. I would sing that 2 times through.
I love that.
You really can't. If you're singing it, it's really been uplifting, and it's worked with a lot of people to just calm and regulate really out of control emotions, at least in the moment.
Gina, you have a great voice, so thank you so much for sharing that with us. Seriously, you do. I love that song. If you guys want, would you be okay with us sharing maybe the words on our Facebook page?
Absolutely, and I'll send it away.
My mom is watching. Hi, Mom. And Steve Weiss. Hi.
Hi, Steve. Steve is another dear friend. I'm so glad. Steve sang this song on his Facebook page after I shared it, and he started a whole thing. Everyone wanted to sing it, and everyone was so uplifted from it. So if we could spread just a little positivity in the midst of a somewhat dark time, I think every little bit helps. So
I love that. People are loving the song. They're all commenting. They love it.
Oh, we could all sing it one more time if you want to sing it along with me.
Sure.
Can we write it out, or?
Yeah.
Every little cell in my body is happy. Every little cell in my body is well. Every little cell in my body is happy. Every little cell in my body is well. Every little cell in my body is happy. Every little cell in my body is well. I'm so glad. I don't want to go over. Every little cell in my body is happy and well. I'm
love
so glad every little cell in my body is happy and well.
Yay!
Thank you guys so much.
This was awesome, Gina. We
Thank you
love
so much.
you. You're
I love
awesome.
you guys and what you're doing, and I'm so, so honored and humbled to be a part of it. You guys are really, I mean, amazing is an understatement.
Amazing. So
And to
are
all the
you.
parents out there, like, if there's not like, but if there is anything that I can help support with, or you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to me.
Yes.
They're always a little bit harder because we're in a time crunch, and but if there's any way I can support, please know that you're not alone.
Yes. And they can visit your website and reach out to you right on Instagram.
For sure, if you're on Instagram, my handle is at Gina Moffa LCSW. I'd love to see you there. I love engaging with the community.
Love that. And it is now 12:45, so that's the end of our conversation. This was amazing. I needed this. Like I said, mental health is really important to me and obviously to so many other people out there. And thank you so much to everyone who joined us today. And we're so happy that you were able to join us and that it was you that came on with us. And thank you so much for that beautiful song. And yes, make sure to tune in on Friday for Recess with PunkinFutz. We'll be having a art-related episode with Julia Zabrovich, who will be bringing us art with our five senses. So make sure you tune in 4 p.m. on Friday to us, facebook.com/PunkinFutz. Thank you, Gina.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Have a good day.